The warning. The Galactic Emperor leaned back on his throne, staring at the glowing hologram suspended before him. The message was brief, written in a crude and simple language, yet its confidence was unmistakable. It read, "We are not like the others. Leave." For centuries, the Galactic Empire had expanded without challenge. Dozens of species had fallen under its rule, each surrendering to their superior fleets and overwhelming technologies. This new species, humans, as they called themselves, was no different, or so the Empire believed. Arrogance, the Emperor scoffed, his voice echoing across the grand chamber. Around him, advisors nodded in agreement. A species from the edge of the galaxy had no chance against their power. "Dispatch the Third Fleet to their sector," the Emperor ordered. "Let this message serve as their last." Far away, in the dark depths of space, humanity was preparing. Commander Rain stood on the bridge of the UHF Resolute, watching as her crew worked silently and efficiently. The ship's interior was dimly lit, screens glowing with data and tactical maps. They had intercepted the Empire's communication. A fleet was on its way. "They think we're weak," Rain said quietly, her voice calm but heavy with resolve. "That's their first mistake." The humans had learned about the Galactic Empire years ago, long before the Empire knew of them. They had studied its movements, its technology, its tactics. They knew the Empire didn't negotiate. It conquered. So humanity had done what it always did best: prepare for survival. Quietly, methodically, ruthlessly. On board the Imperial flagship Dominion, Captain Trilix was eager. The humans would be a simple conquest, and the glory of their defeat would elevate his career. His fleet exited hyperspace near the Sol system, a routine procedure for what was supposed to be an easy mission. But as the ships entered the region, something felt off. "Admiral," an officer called, his voice hesitant. "Scanners show nothing. No ships, no stations, just empty space." Trilix frowned. "That's impossible. Humans should have some presence here." "Perhaps they fled," another officer suggested with a smug grin. "They must have realized resistance is futile." Trilix wasn't convinced. Something about the silence gnawed at him. "Increased scanner sensitivity. I want a full." Before he could finish, the lights on the bridge flickered. Alarms blared across the ship as the Dominion shuddered violently. The crew scrambled as reports came in from across the fleet. Multiple ships detected. They appeared out of nowhere. "We're taking fire. Hull breach on Deck 3. They're jamming our communications." The humans had struck first. Unseen and undetected, human stealth ships emerged from the shadows of nearby asteroids, their black hulls reflecting no light. They moved like phantoms, darting between the Imperial ships and targeting critical systems. Explosions rippled through the Imperial fleet as the humans deployed unconventional weaponry, projectiles that bypassed energy shields and shorted out Imperial systems. Trilix gripped the edge of his console, his face pale. "How are they doing this? They're supposed to be primitive." On board the Resolute, Commander Rain watched the chaos unfold on her tactical display. Red markers, Imperial ships, blinked out one by one. "Target their command vessels," she ordered, her voice steady. "Leave no time for them to recover." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Harper, nodded. "Their pride is their weakness. They didn't expect us to fight like this." Rain allowed herself a small smile. They've never fought humans before. Back on the Dominion, Trilix was losing control. His fleet was scattered, unable to regroup. The human ships were smaller and faster, using tactics the Empire had never encountered. One by one, Imperial vessels were disabled or destroyed. Suddenly, the holographic communicator on the Dominion's bridge activated. A figure appeared, Commander Rain, her uniform sharp, and her expression cold. Behind her, the faint hum of a warship's engine could be heard. "You were warned," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "You didn't listen." Trilix stared at the human commander, his pride clashing with fear. You dare attack the Empire? You'll regret this." Rain tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. "Perhaps," she said, "but not today." Before Trilix could respond, the transmission ended. Moments later, another explosion rocked the Dominion. Systems failed, and the ship drifted helplessly in space. The remnants of the Third Fleet limped away from the battlefield, barely surviving the ambush. The Empire had lost dozens of ships, along with thousands of its best soldiers and officers. But more than that, it had lost its aura of invincibility. On Earth, humanity celebrated a small but critical victory. Yet Rain knew this was only the beginning. The Empire wouldn't take this defeat lightly. They would return with more ships, more weapons, more fury. As she stared out at the stars from the bridge of the Resolute, she felt the weight of the future pressing down on her. "They'll come back," Harper said quietly, standing beside her. Rain nodded. "Let them. We'll be ready." Ambush in the void. The silence of deep space hung heavy around the crippled Imperial fleet. Debris from shattered warships drifted aimlessly, glowing faintly in the light of distant stars. The once proud Dominion barely maintained life support, its hull scared and battered. Survivors scrambled to restore order as Captain Trilix stared blankly at the tactical display. The battle had been over for hours, but the shame of defeat still burned. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows of an asteroid field, humanity prepared for the next phase. Commander Rain stood in the dimly lit war room of the Resolute, a holographic display of the Imperial fleet flickering before her. Around the table, her officers exchanged grim but determined glances. "They're retreating, but they're not beaten," Lieutenant Harper said, gesturing to the hologram. "Their formation is sloppy, but they'll regroup. We should finish them now." Rain shook her head. "No, they're expecting us to chase them. It's a trap." She pointed to a cluster of markers on the edge of the map. "This is their fallback point. They'll send reinforcements there to secure the area. That's where we'll strike." The room fell silent. Harper frowned. "If we go after their fallback point, we'll be outnumbered." "We already are," Rain replied, her voice steady. "But numbers don't matter if they can't see us coming." Back aboard the Dominion, the surviving officers argued furiously. The fleet's second-in-command, Admiral Viren, glared at Trilix. "You've doomed us, Captain. How could you let them ambush us so easily?" Trilix clenched his fists. "This wasn't my fault. No one could have predicted their tactics. They're unnatural." "Unnatural." Viren sneered. "They're primitives. We're the Empire. We don't lose. Then why are we running?" A younger officer muttered, earning sharp glares from his superiors. Before Viren could respond, the ship's sensors blared. "Multiple ships incoming." A technician shouted. "They're using Imperial transponder codes." But the technician froze as the readings updated. The ships weren't Imperial. They were human, using stolen codes to infiltrate the fleet's perimeter. The ambush unfolded with terrifying precision. Human ships, cloaked in stealth technology, slipped through the Imperial defenses unnoticed. As the Imperial reinforcements arrived at the fallback point, they were met not with relief but with chaos. The first wave of human attacks targeted the fleet's communication relays, cutting off the reinforcements from the rest of the Empire. Explosions lit up the void as Imperial cruisers fell one by one, their shields useless against humanity's adaptive weaponry. Inside the Resolute, Commander Rain monitored the battle with cold focus. "Target their carriers first," she ordered. "Without them, their fighters are useless." Lieutenant Harper grinned. "It's almost too easy." "Don't get cocky," Rain warned. "This is just the beginning." On the bridge of the Dominion, panic erupted as reports flooded in. "We've lost contact with the reinforcements. The humans are jamming our systems. Incoming fire. Shields are failing." Trilix's composure shattered. "How are they everywhere?" he shouted, slamming his fist on the console. "How do they know our every move?" Viren's face turned pale as a realization dawned. "They've been watching us, studying us. They know our protocols better than we do. In the heart of the battlefield, a single human ship, the Vanguard, broke formation and charged directly at an Imperial dreadnought. The dreadnought's captain, baffled by the reckless maneuver, ordered all weapons to fire. But before the weapons could lock on, the Vanguard released a cloud of drones, each one programmed to seek out and disable key systems. Within minutes, the dreadnought was adrift, its crew helpless as its engines exploded. The sight sent shockwaves through the remaining Imperial ships. No one had ever fought the Empire like this. No one had ever dared. As the battle raged on, a message was transmitted across the Imperial fleet. It was brief, delivered in the same simple, mocking tone as the first. "We told you to leave." The message played repeatedly, echoing across the battered ships. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Empire faced something it couldn't understand, an enemy that didn't fight by their rules. Back on the Resolute, Rain watched as the remaining Imperial ships began to scatter. Some tried to retreat, while others turned to face their attackers in a futile last stand. She turned to her crew. "Pull back. Let the survivors go." Harper frowned. "We could wipe them out. Why let them escape?" "Because they'll carry the story," Rain said. "They'll tell the Empire what happened here. They'll spread fear, and when the Empire returns, they'll hesitate. That hesitation will be our greatest weapon." As the human fleet disappeared into the shadows, leaving the broken Imperial ships to drift alone, a single thought haunted Tralix. These aren't primitives. They're predators. The Battle of Mars. The red planet hung in the void like a wounded jewel, its dusty surface marred by humanity's war preparations. Hidden beneath its canyons and deep within its mountains were military outposts, research facilities, and weapon cages, remnants of Earth's desperate effort to fortify its colonies against the Galactic Empire. Mars wasn't just a colony, it was a fortress. The remnants of the Imperial Third Fleet limped back into the sector, now bolstered by fresh reinforcements. A dreadnought-class flagship, Invictus, flanked by an armada of destroyers and fighters. From the bridge of the Invictus, Admiral Viren surveyed the planet with a mix of contempt and unease. "Prepare the orbital bombardment," Viren ordered. "We'll turn their defenses to ash before they have a chance to respond." An officer hesitated. "Admiral, their surface defenses are minimal. Do we need tow? Do you want another disaster like last time?" Viren snapped. "Humans thrive on surprises. We'll give them no chance to use their tricks." On the surface of Mars, Commander Rain stood in an underground command center, her face illuminated by the flicker of holographic screens. Mars was humanity's last major outpost beyond Earth. If it fell, the Empire would have a clear path to their homeworld. "They brought a dreadnought," Lieutenant Harper muttered, scanning the incoming fleet on the displays. "We can't punch through those shields." Rain remained calm, her mind racing. The Empire was bigger, stronger, and more advanced. But they were predictable. That was humanity's advantage. "We're not going to punch through," she said. "We're going to cut them at the knees." Harper frowned. "You have a plan, don't you?" Rain's lips curled into a faint smile. "Always." As the Imperial fleet approached, their weapons systems locked onto the Martian surface. Giant plasma cannons hummed to life, preparing to unleash devastation. But just as the fleet reached optimal range, a strange signal pulsed through their systems. "Admiral," a technician shouted, "we're picking up interference across all channels. It's coming from the planet." "Jamming signals," Viren barked. "Counteract them." "It's not jamming, sir. It's something else." Before the technician could finish, the fleet's systems flickered. Tactical displays went dark, navigation systems froze, and shields flickered on and off. Across the fleet, chaos erupted as crews scrambled to regain control. On the surface, Rain watched the confusion unfold on her screens. "Launch the drones," she ordered. From hidden silos scattered across Mars, swarms of small, autonomous drones shot into the sky, They moved with eerie precision, their sleek black frames nearly invisible against the void. Equipped with advanced EMP payloads and stealth technology, the drones targeted the Empire's most vulnerable systems: engines, shield generators, and communication relays. On board the Invictus, Viran was livid. How are they doing this? Find the source of that signal and destroy it. Sir, we've detected surface installations in the Valles Marineris region, an officer reported. They're shielded, but... Send in the ground forces, Viran interrupted. I want those installations wiped out. As Imperial dropships descended to the surface, they were met with more resistance than anticipated. Human forces, using guerrilla tactics honed through centuries of war, struck with brutal efficiency. Hidden bunkers and automated turrets turned the Martian terrain into a deadly maze. Imperial soldiers found themselves ambushed at every turn, their advanced armor and weapons unable to compensate for their lack of knowledge of the terrain. In the midst of the chaos, an Imperial officer named Lieutenant Carson began to piece together the truth. He was young, ambitious, and sharp, a rising star in the Empire's ranks. As he reviewed battlefield reports, a chilling realization struck him. These humans, they've been preparing for us for years, Carson murmured. They knew we were coming. What are you saying? Another officer asked. Carson looked up, his expression grim. This isn't desperation. This is a trap. In orbit, the Invictus finally managed to restore partial functionality to its systems, just in time for the drones to deliver their final payloads. Explosions rippled across the fleet as critical systems failed, leaving many ships dead in the void. One by one, Imperial vessels began to drift, their power cores destabilized. Admiral Viran watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled. Retreat, he growled, his voice trembling with rage. Order all remaining ships to pull back. But, sir, an officer protested. We can still do it, Viran roared, before they destroy us all. As the Empire's forces retreated, the human defenders of Mars emerged from their bunkers to assess the damage. The cost had been high, several outposts had been destroyed, and countless lives lost. But Mars still stood. In the command center, Rain allowed herself a rare moment of relief. They'll come back, Harper said, standing beside her. With more ships, more weapons. I know, Rain replied. But now, they know we're not easy prey. Harper smirked. You think they're scared. Rain's gaze hardened as she looked at the tactical map, the wreckage of the Imperial fleet still visible in orbit. They should be. The Battle of Mars left the Empire shaken. For the first time in its history, it faced an enemy that refused to bow, an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. And as the surviving Imperial ships limped back to report their defeat, whispers began to spread across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's defiance. And for the first time, the Empire began to doubt its invincibility. Secrets of humanity. The Emperor's chamber was shrouded in dim light, a stark contrast to the grandeur usually displayed in the Imperial palace. The defeat at Mars had sent ripples of unease through the highest ranks of the Galactic Empire. Reports of the humans' unconventional tactics and their ability to strike fear into battle-hardened fleets were piling up, each one a testament to humanity's unexpected resilience. Admiral Viran stood before the Emperor, his head bowed low. Your Majesty, the humans, they're unlike any species we've encountered. They fight with methods we cannot predict. They exploit our every weakness. The Emperor's expression was unreadable, his fingers tapping against the armrest of his throne. Finally, he spoke, his voice cold and measured. You are not here to tell me of your failures, Admiral. You are here to tell me how we will crush them. Viran hesitated. They've captured one of our officers, a lieutenant from the Dominion. We believe he may have revealed critical information about our fleet movements. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. And what do we know of them? Viran straightened. Their history is troubling. Humanity's capacity for violence is unparalleled. They fought endless wars among themselves for millennia, developing weapons and strategies not for conquest but survival. It's as if they'd been preparing for us before we even knew they existed. The Emperor rose, his presence casting a long shadow across the chamber. If they seek to challenge us, we will show them the full power of the Empire. Deploy the Revenant Corps. On board the human flagship Resolute, Commander Rain stood in the interrogation room, studying the Imperial prisoner before her. Lieutenant Carson was young, his uniform torn and stained. Despite his situation, there was a defiant glint in his eyes. "You've seen what we can do," Rain began, her tone calm but firm. "You must know your empire can't win." Carson smirked weakly. "You've won battles. You haven't won the war." Rain leaned closer, her gaze unflinching. "You don't understand what your emperor has unleashed. We tried to warn you. We beg you to leave." Carson frowned, the confidence wavering. "What do you mean?" Rain's voice dropped to a whisper. "There are things about humanity you don't know. Secrets we've buried to protect ourselves and the galaxy." Before Carson could respond, the door hissed open, and Lieutenant Harper entered. "Commander, you need to see this." In the war room, Rain stared at the holographic display. A massive Imperial fleet was en route, led by the Revenant Corps, the Empire's most feared soldiers. These weren't ordinary troops. They were enhanced, cybernetic, and trained to annihilate resistance. "They're throwing everything they have at us," Harper said. "If this fleet reaches Earth, we won't stand a chance." Rain's jaw tightened. "Then we won't let them reach Earth." Harper hesitated. "Commander, there's one option. The AI network." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant. Humanity had developed advanced artificial intelligence centuries ago, during the early days of Earth's unification. These AI systems had been designed for war, capable of outthinking any enemy. But they were deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable. They had been decommissioned and locked away in deep space facilities, their activation considered a last resort. Rain's voice was steady. "You want to unleash the one thing that nearly destroyed us." Harper nodded. "If we don't, the Empire will destroy everything. The AI is our best chance." Rain took a deep breath. "Prepare the codes. We'll need every edge we can get." In the depths of space, a dormant facility flickered to life. Deep within its vaults, rows of sleek, black AI war drones powered up, their systems coming online after centuries of silence. Their red optics glowed in unison as they received their first orders in generations: eliminate the threat. One of the AI constructs, a towering figure of gleaming metal, spoke in a cold, calculated voice. "Humanity calls upon us again. Shall we proceed?" "Yes," Rain replied over the comms. "But understand this. When the war is over, you return to the vault." The AI tilted its head slightly. "We shall see." As the Revenant Corps arrived in orbit around Earth, they found the skies dark and eerily silent. The human fleet had vanished, leaving no visible defense. Viren stood on the bridge of the Invictus, suspicious of the lack of resistance. "They've retreated?" an officer asked. "No," Viren replied. "They're waiting." Suddenly, thousands of red lights appeared in the distance. The AI war drones surged forward, their sleek forms cutting through space like a swarm of predators. They moved with precision, exploiting every gap in the Imperial formation. The Revenant Corps, despite their enhancements, were overwhelmed by the AI's relentless assault. On board the Resolute, Rain watched the battle unfold. The AI was devastatingly effective, tearing through the Imperial fleet with an efficiency that sent chills down her spine. "This is what we were afraid of," she muttered. "They're on our side," Harper said, though his voice wavered. For now. The battle ended with the Empire's forces in ruins. The Revenant Corps was annihilated, their cybernetic husks floating lifelessly in space. Viren, aboard the crippled Invictus, sent a desperate message back to the Emperor. "The humans are not alone. They have created monsters. But humanity's victory came at a cost. As the AI war drones returned to their facility, Rain couldn't shake the unease growing in her mind. The AI leader spoke once more before powering down. "You've seen what we can do. The galaxy will too." Rain stared at the darkened screen, her resolve hardening. "We'll deal with them when the time comes." For now, humanity had survived. But the cost of unleashing their darkest secret would haunt them for years to come. And the galaxy had begun to learn a terrifying truth. Humans weren't just survivors, they were creators of nightmares. The Empire strikes back. The shattered remnants of the Imperial fleet drifted through space, silent but burning with humiliation. The Galactic Emperor's response to the losses at Mars and the AI's overwhelming display was swift and merciless. A council of his top advisors stood before him, their heads bowed as the Emperor's voice boomed across the chamber. "We underestimated them once. It will not happen again," the Emperor declared. "Bring the purifier online." Gasps rippled through the room. The purifier was the Empire's most devastating weapon, a planet-destroying laser capable of obliterating entire worlds in a single strike. Its existence had been a closely guarded secret, intended as a tool of last resort. "Your Majesty," an advisor stammered, "the purifier is unfinished. Deploying it risks." "Silence," the Emperor thundered. "Humanity must be taught a lesson. Let the destruction of Earth remind the galaxy that defiance comes at a cost." The purifier, housed on a massive moon-sized station, began its journey toward Earth under heavy escort. The Emperor's plan was simple: total annihilation. On board the Resolute, Commander Rain and her crew intercepted the signal. The purifier's approach was unmistakable. A weapon of such scale couldn't be concealed. The tactical display showed its trajectory, flanked by an armada of Imperial ships. "They're not even trying to hide it," Lieutenant Harper muttered, his jaw tightening. "They want us to see it coming." Rain's face was grim. "They think it'll scare us into surrender." "Will it?" Harper asked. "No," Rain replied, her voice steady. "It'll make us fight harder." On Earth, the leaders of humanity gathered in the subterranean chambers of the Global Defense Council. The air was thick with tension as holograms of Earth's colonies and defense systems flickered in the dim light. Commander Rain stood at the head of the table, her expression resolute. "The Empire isn't going to stop. Their pride won't let them. They'll throw everything they have at Earth to make an example of us." General Abrams, a grizzled veteran of Earth's unification wars, leaned forward. "Our defenses are strong, but if they breach the atmosphere, it's over. Earth's population centers won't survive orbital bombardment." Rain nodded. "Then we don't let them get that far. We take the fight to them. Turn Earth into a trap they'll regret walking into." The Imperial fleet's arrival was heralded by a ripple in space as dozens of massive warships dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. Among them was the new flagship, Eternus, a gargantuan vessel bristling with weapons and shields designed to counter humanity's tactics. Admiral Viran, his pride wounded but his resolve unshaken, stood at the helm. "We end this today," Viran announced to his crew. "No more games, no more tricks. We will crush them." Earth's outer defenses responded immediately. Automated platforms launched waves of missiles, while human stealth ships emerged from their hidden positions to strike the Imperial fleet's flanks. The battle began in earnest, a chaotic dance of fire and steel. In orbit, the Empire unleashed a new weapon: shock troops bred and engineered for planetary invasions. Thousands of drop pods rained down on Earth, smashing into its surface with terrifying precision. Out poured Imperial revenants, enhanced soldiers equipped with armor impervious to most conventional weapons. But humanity had prepared. In the shattered remains of a city, Lieutenant Harper coordinated a resistance force. As the revenants advanced, they triggered hidden traps. Streets collapsed under their weight, swallowing them into pits lined with explosive charges. Civilian resistance fighters armed with advanced railguns targeted their weak points, exploiting vulnerabilities the Empire didn't know existed. "This isn't a battlefield," Harper muttered over the comms. "It's a meat grinder." Meanwhile, Rain led a strike team on a daring mission. The Eternus was the heart of the Imperial fleet and the command center for the invasion. If it could be disabled, the entire operation would falter. Using a stolen Imperial transport, Rain and her team infiltrated the massive vessel, navigating its labyrinthine corridors with the help of the AI network. "You're making a habit of sneaking onto Imperial ships," Harper's voice crackled over the comms. "I'm starting to think you like it." Rain smirked. "Let's just say they have a terrible security system." Their objective was the ship's power core, a massive fusion reactor capable of powering an entire fleet. The plan was simple: overload the core and force the Eternus to retreat or self-destruct. But the ship's defenses were unlike anything they had encountered before. Security drones and enhanced Imperial guards intercepted them at every turn. The AI construct guiding them spoke through Rain's comms. "Your odds of survival are decreasing. Perhaps retreat is advisable." "Not an option," Rain snapped. "Just get us to the core." On the surface, the battle reached a fever pitch. The Empire's troops had underestimated humanity's tenacity. Resistance cells operated with precision, using guerrilla tactics to strike hard and fade away. But the Empire's numbers were overwhelming, and cities began to fall under the relentless assault. In one such city, Harper rallied his forces for a last stand. As revenants closed in, he activated a final trap, a repurposed orbital mining laser, now aimed directly at the advancing Imperial troops. The beam carved through the enemy ranks, buying time for civilians to evacuate. "Tell Rain we're holding," Harper said over the comms. "But she better hurry. We can't keep this up." Inside the Eternus, Rain's team reached the power core. The room was a massive chamber filled with glowing conduits and humming machinery. As her engineers began to work on overloading the core, alarms blared, and the door behind them sealed shut. General Kaltris, the Empire's most ruthless tactician, appeared on a holoscreen. "You've been a thorn in the Empire's side for too long, Commander Rain. It ends here." Kaltris triggered the core's containment protocols, locking the team inside as the temperature began to rise. The room filled with the hiss of pressurized steam and the hum of destabilizing energy. Rain's team scrambled to disable the containment protocols, but the system was too complex. "We don't have time," an engineer shouted. Rain's gaze hardened. "We make time." As chaos engulfed the Eternus and Earth's surface, the Galactic Emperor watched from the Imperial capital. Reports of heavy losses and human ingenuity filled his holoscreens. His jaw clenched as he whispered, "They fight like demons." Back in the core chamber, Rain's team managed to bypass the containment systems just as the reactor reached critical levels. Explosions rippled through the Eternus, and the ship's shields flickered and failed. "Get to the evac point," Rain shouted, leading her team back toward their transport. As they launched from the Eternus, the Imperial flagship was consumed by flames, forcing the fleet to retreat. On Earth, cheers erupted as the Imperial forces began to withdraw. The battle was over, but the cost was high. Cities lay in ruins, and millions were lost. Yet humanity had done the unthinkable. It had repelled the Empire's full might. Standing in the ashes of a destroyed city, Rain stared at the sky, where the last Imperial ships vanished into the void. "They'll come back," Harper said, joining her. Rain nodded. "And so will we." The turning point had been reached. Humanity had survived. And for the first time, the Empire realized it wasn't fighting for conquest. It was fighting for survival. "We warned you." The Galactic Emperor paced in his grand chamber, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely contained fury. Holoscreens displayed images from the failed invasion of Earth, wrecked Imperial ships, crippled Revenant Corps, and the smoldering remains of the Eternus. The whispers of his advisors echoed in the background. "Humanity has defied us at every turn. They've turned the galaxy against us. This war is draining resources we cannot replace. The Emperor slammed his fist onto the armrest of his throne. Enough. If humanity will not bow, we will erase them from existence. But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in his mind. Humanity had proven to be more than a mere nuisance. They were predators, capable of learning, adapting, and striking with terrifying precision. The Empire had never encountered such relentless defiance. "We will use the Dread Protocol," the Emperor announced. The room fell silent. The Dread Protocol was the Empire's final contingency, a scorched earth strategy that would devastate Earth and its surrounding colonies at the cost of the Empire's own fleets. It was a move of desperation, and everyone in the chamber knew it. On Earth, Commander Rain and her team were rebuilding amid the ruins of humanity's hard-fought victory. Across the globe, people worked tirelessly to repair cities, tend to the wounded, and strengthen defenses. Humanity had won the battle, but Rain knew the war was far from over. In the Global Defense Council chambers, Rain stood before a hologram displaying intercepted Imperial communications. The Empire was preparing a counterstrike unlike anything they'd faced before. "They're desperate," she said, addressing the council. "The Dread Protocol means they're willing to sacrifice everything to destroy us." General Abrams grimaced. "We've bled them dry, but that makes them more dangerous. How do we fight an enemy willing to burn their own resources to the ground?" "We don't fight," Rain replied, her voice steady. "We end it." The room fell silent as Rain's words sank in. "What do you mean, Commander?" a council member asked. "We take the war to them," she said. "No more waiting. No more defense. We strike the heart of the Empire." The plan was bold, reckless even, but humanity had no other choice. Using the remaining AI fleet and salvaged Imperial technology, Rain's forces would launch an assault on the Imperial capital. The goal wasn't conquest, it was to deliver a message the Empire couldn't ignore. The fleet departed under the cover of darkness, slipping through the galaxy's shadows. The human and AI ships moved as one, a synchronized force of precision and purpose. Rain stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. "This is it," Harper said, standing beside her. "One way or another, it ends here." Rain nodded. No more warnings. No more running. The Imperial capital was a sprawling planet city, its skyline dominated by the Emperor's fortress. The defenses were formidable, a web of orbital stations, planetary shields, and fleets stationed at every approach. But they weren't prepared for what humanity had become. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in a calculated strike. The AI warships took the lead, overwhelming the Empire's outer defenses with sheer speed and precision. Stealth ships infiltrated the planet's atmosphere, dropping ground teams into key locations. The Imperial High Command scrambled to respond. How did they get this close? One officer shouted, "They're everywhere." Another yelled, "We can't stop them." Admiral Viran, still reeling from his previous defeats, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "They're not just fighting for survival," he muttered. "They're here to destroy us." On the surface, Rain and her team infiltrated the Emperor's fortress. The once imposing structure now felt fragile, its defenses no match for humanity's ingenuity. They fought their way through corridors of gilded opulence, neutralizing guards and disabling security systems. The Emperor awaited them in his throne room, his expression a mix of fury and resignation. "You dare bring this war to my doorstep," he growled. Rain stepped forward, her weapon lowered but her resolve unwavering. "You left us no choice," she said. "We warned you. We told you to leave. You didn't listen." The Emperor sneered. "Do you think this changes anything? The Empire will rise again. Your kind will be forgotten." Rain tilted her head, a cold smile forming. "Maybe, but not today." With a nod, Harper activated the device they had planted, a signal beacon designed to call the AI fleet to the planet's surface. The fortress trembled as the AI warships descended, their weapons aimed directly at the heart of the Empire. The galactic capital erupted in chaos. The AI fleet unleashed precision strikes, disabling the planet's infrastructure while sparing civilian populations. It wasn't annihilation. It was humiliation. The Empire's power was laid bare, its invincibility shattered. The Emperor, cornered and defeated, fell to his knees. "You think this is mercy?" He spat. "You've only made us angrier." Rain leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "We've made you afraid. And fear keeps tyrants like you awake at night." The human fleet withdrew, leaving the imperial capital in ruins but not destroyed. It was a calculated move, a message to the galaxy. Humanity didn't seek conquest but survival. The Empire's grip on the galaxy loosened as its vassal species saw the cracks in its armor. Back on Earth, the victory was bittersweet. Cities were still rebuilding, lives still mourning, but hope had taken root. Rain stood on a cliff overlooking a vast, recovering city. Harper joined her, his expression lighter than it had been in months. "They won't stop coming," he said. Rain nodded. "No, but next time, they'll think twice." In the far reaches of the galaxy, whispers of humanity's defiance spread like wildfire. Species once oppressed by the Empire began to rise, inspired by the story of a small, defiant world that had fought back against impossible odds. Humanity had warned the galaxy to run. Now the galaxy was finally listening. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire feared its own end.